Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second edition of the webinar from Servo and Retry. For those of our audiences who tuned in last time, you would know Gaurav Sarien. He's a popular face in the chatbot industry, and he's volunteered to come again to this webinar. Thank you so much, Gaurav.
Rather dragged, to be honest, not really volunteered.
So Gaurav's been kind to us like always. For those of you who do not know Gaurav, I will give out a brief introduction. Gaurav is one of the country's leading solution architects as far as AI and more specifically AI-enabled chatbots for enterprises is concerned. He comes from an organization which has a legacy of empowering 5,000 enterprises for the better part of 2 decades for enterprise communication solutions. Only last year, he was the flag bearer of a chatbot solution which won the CMO Choice Award, selected by over 100 CMOs from most of the top brands across the country. He has a vast experience in dealing with almost all sizes of enterprises to facilitate them with best-in-class enterprise communication solutions. Thank you for joining once again, Gaurav.
Thank you so much for having me, Abhishek. And you did not really have to say so much about me, but that's okay.
Chatbots in general, I'll clear the clue for the organization, for the organizations and the audiences that are joining in for the first time. Chatbots, in simple terms, are a piece of software that automate a conversation on behalf of the organization for their audiences. In rather more simpler terms, chatbots are digital super employees. They can generate leads for you, acquire feedback, consumer insight, admin tasks, customer support, whatnot. You don't have to pay them anything other than you pay the chatbot service providers. You don't have to give them leave travel allowances. You don't have to do the HR work with them. You don't need to do employee engagement. So they're pretty much the perfect employees that are available to you 24/7 without any fatigue whatsoever.
That being said, humans are good too. Just saying that.
Just put things beautifully into the perspective, Gaurav. Gaurav, of all the use cases that chatbots have been solving for various business challenges, today we are discussing lead generation. So before we dive deeper into how chatbots facilitate that requirement, I want to take your crack on lead generation.
See, to be very honest, it's like asking your date to go out for a coffee, really. I'll tell you why. Because, see, it's really nothing but a give and take of information in a much more smarter and a much more intelligent way. Brands want to communicate to their audiences as to what products and what service offerings they have. Audiences want to know that, and they also want to know how those products and services will benefit them. And in doing so, they want to register themselves for those benefits. So up until now, whatever means of lead generation that we've been using, they have been fairly static, and they've kind of lived out their life. I think it's only fair that we take a leap this technological advancement, because more and more businesses want more and more leads, quicker conversions, and better ROI. So I think it's just the right perspective for chat.
So while chatbots, how do you put them into perspective when talking about lead generation? What exactly is the portion that they're automating? And how do you see different organizations having different lead generation requirements? And how do you see chatbots solving?
Right. So see, lead generation will be different for, let's say, something like a Practo, will be different from for something like a Bajaj Finserv, will be different for something like for somebody who's selling some insurance, or would be different for an automobile industry, so to say, who wants to book test drives. However, the end goal is more or less the same. Brands want to connect with the audiences, and they want to be able to offer their services to the audiences, capture interest. And also, the audience wants to understand what is the easiest way to leverage those benefits. So that's the part that is really automated by the chatbots. The chatbot not only beautifully describes the product or service offering, but also allows the user to give in their details and be eligible for that service offering or product, so to say. In doing so, what really happens is that we've not only been able to capture a lead, generate interest and capture a lead, but we've also been able to communicate to the relevant systems inside the organization, be it lead management or some sort of a CRM that I'm working with, because your chatbots can latch on to these systems beautifully. And once that has happened, so that means that in lesser time, I've been able to reach out to the right audiences. In lesser time, I've been able to capture interest, capture details, and have also been able to populate my lead management systems and power my sales teams to go out there and go for the kill.
So that being said, of what I can understand, has the Indian market per se, or the Southeast Asian region, or the Indian subcontinent, or Middle East, have these markets seen maturity enough, as in, or is just a theory what we're talking about, or is there a practical application as well?
Right. No, no. I think these markets are definitely witnessing a boom in leveraging such technologies. The reason why I say that is because we've had tremendous case studies coming in from Middle East, coming in from Southeast Asia and India specifically. For example, we've had insurance companies registering about 7,000 leads for 70,000 interactions. We've had your Finserv companies, your financial services companies who are talking about a 300% engagement rate, 300 times engagement rate.
Very healthy.
Great, right. And that's the whole benefit of it, right? Earlier, what I was doing in a very static manner, in a manner that people had fairly gotten bored of, to be very honest. So while I say this, I don't blame the channel. It is just that the entire way in which the thing's been put together, it kind of has become dry. So I think with the help of these chatbots, we've been able to invigorate a new level of interest, and hence the numbers have gone up. For example, recently in one of the articles that I was reading, Gartner claimed that 74% of the consumers say that they'd rather talk to a bot about an insurance policy offering than a human, which is a great number. So yeah, I think these markets are witnessing great maturity in this.
So here's a pickle. We're talking about chatbots, and they burst onto the scene primarily because of the OTT applications that we're looking at.
Right.
In terms of Facebook and Telegram and WhatsApp is slowly coming into the picture. But all of these channels don't allow you to push randomly to any of their consumer database. So how do you see dealing with that kind of a challenge? If I am not allowed to expose myself to a fresh audience, how do I generate or acquire lead for that?
Yeah, so right. That limitation is definitely there. But if you look at it, that limitation has always been there, hasn't it? Every business has been trying both push and pull strategies. Whilst with pull strategies on our websites or mobile applications, we can deploy chatbots so that the users can come and communicate with us in a better way because browsing has become a passe now. With regards to push strategies, when you leverage a channel like an SMS or you leverage a channel like an email, when you have a target group that you're kind of sending out this communication, instead of clubbing it with a static web URL, you can have a chatbot link in it, which means that the second I receive an SMS or an email, I can either click on the call to action or I can click on that link. And instead of going on to a web page, I can now straight away start interacting with the chatbot, right? That's one. Second, even the social channels like Facebook Messenger does allow some sort of what do you call initiative in communicating with the audience, given the fact that the audience has been directed to those channels through, let's say, an ad that you've displayed over Google or maybe on Facebook, and once that has happened, and once the user gives the consent to, let's say, Facebook Messenger bot to sort of broadcast some information, it can do so beautifully. So yes, it's more or less there in terms of reaching out, but then there are always other means like SMS and email.
So that's definitely a level of maturity that bots are already looking at in
Correct.
terms of the channels that they can access. So we're talking about SMS and email. This kind of a service largely is good for organizations that have matured a little bit or have a certain database to work with, who are looking to cross-sell or upsell their products to different audiences which they already own. But what about enterprises who are just entering the game? What about those startups? What about those SMEs? How do you see chatbots leveraging a channel like an SMS? Firstly, it's a beautiful medium. SMS, you could just send a link with a bot, and somebody can click on the link and just submit a lead. So it's a beautiful medium. But how does an SME or how does a startup access this kind of a database where they don't own one in the beginning of their business?
Right. This technology, as such, kind of becomes redundant if it's not backed with the right database. That's completely apt. Whilst most of the bigger organizations kind of own their database and manage it on their own, there's nothing to worry about for smaller enterprises or for startups at all. Why? There are several platforms and several businesses out there that do something that we like to call managed campaigns.
You're talking about affiliate.
Correct. Which really means is that those companies have a tie-up with all these publishers who will be able to provide a database with regards to a specific sort of audience in a specific geography, doing a specific in a specific sort of an occupation with a specific interest level. So that's the kind of detailing that we can go to in terms of the database. Now that's one part of it. The other part of it is the ability to reach out. Most of these companies or most of these platforms would have communication channels like an SMS or an email clubbed onto it. So then that means that if I'm a smaller enterprise, I don't really have to worry about collating the right data, and then figuring out the right communication strategy, I can straight away go on to platforms like these. There are many such platforms, one of them being ReachRight, which is doing a fairly good job in this space. With ReachRight, you can both plan your communication, both kind of understand the kind of database that works best for you, leverage industry experience, and also, as you just mentioned, you can pair it with a chatbot and reach out to the right audience using that. So I think that's double the level of expertise that you can leverage.
Okay, that's an interesting input. And while we're talking about audiences, I'd just like to say to my audience that while Gaurav is answering my questions, feel free to ask any and every question that you may have. We'll try to answer all of them during this webinar. If not, we'll try to send you back a reply via email for sure.
And guys, please ask, because I'm supposed to be paid 10,000 rupees per question that I answer. Please ask as many questions as possible.
That's an understatement. Off the topic, and this is a question from the audiences. When we're talking about lead generation in particular, chatbots are famous to have integrated the artificial intelligence technology. How deep an integration of artificial intelligence is required with the chatbot technology per se to get the best out of my lead generation campaign?
It's been a debatable topic for quite some time. And the reason why it's been debatable is because most of the people don't make sense of what AI is and how do I leverage it over time. So one thing is very clear. When you're looking at a structured flow, I'll break it further down. What I mean by structured flow is where I want to simply talk about the product or service. And once I'm done talking about it, I want to help the audience understand how it benefits them and what's the next logical call to action in it. In these three simple steps, if you ask me personally, I don't really see leveraging AI to that great an extent. However, if you're looking at a use case like, let's say, an FAQ or a customer support, wherein you can expect the user to ask any sort of a question, there my dependence on AI goes up.
You're talking more of a product discovery mode?
Correct. So where a user is asking questions as to what kind of product is most suited for me. So if it could be talking about several filters, several dependencies that a user is trying to clarify on his own. There maybe I could leverage certain bit of NLP, certain bit of semantic relatedness or sentiment analysis to try and gauge as to what kind of requirement and what kind of product or service offering suits best. But very honestly, most of the brands are a little wary of that. They understand that because they've done the math themselves, they know what audience, what kind of service offering. So as of now, not many brands have come forward asking for a huge dependence on AI. They understand at the end of the day, what matters is the number of leads they've made. So very frankly, our dependence on AI should not really be that much for a flow as simple as lead gen.
Okay, so just to sum it up, you get 400% more leads with a chatbot, which is much more interactive and fun in terms of the fun portion.
Right.
I am flabbergasted by the technology. I now want to understand that what is it that I should be looking in my chatbot service provider, and also what is it that I should be looking in my affiliate database provider in terms of characteristics or in terms of features that they have to offer that would best facilitate my case.
This is a good question. So it's divided in two parts. First part to begin with. Any sort of a company that is trying to leverage the chatbot technology should, number one, look at the tech stack that a particular provider has to offer. What has happened is we're like bees, every new product or every new technology, most players want to adopt it. Most of players want to kind of come up with that technology themselves.
You need to survive.
Correct. So you need to look at which provider are you tying up with? Does that provider have an entire platform? Are they going to do a custom build for you? And that could be an individual's decision. Personally, I think if somebody owns a platform, that makes much more sense because your needs can grow over time. So if today you might be talking about lead generation, tomorrow you could be talking about customer support. You could be talking about engagement at different levels. So you should always look for a platform, first of all. That's number one. So when you look at a platform, you've got to look at the tech stack that supports it. What kind of experience do they come with? What kind of NLP engines do they tie up with? Do they have their own NLP engines, or are the kinds that you'd have to latch on with an IBM Watson or something like that? That's the second crucial part.
So between this, I'm sorry to put in another question between a question. Would you prefer somebody who's got a homegrown AI or who's probably subscribing to a service like an IBM Watson or a Victoria?
Again, I think it's a very brand conscious decision. What most of the people don't realize is that even an IBM Watson, you'd have to build your own libraries. My engine is as good as the libraries I've built and the intentologies and the rules I've built around those libraries. So even if it's a homegrown AI, let's say Servo, for example, has a homegrown NLP engine built in-house. Now, people would often debate that why should I go for you if an IBM Watson is already available? They don't realize it that just because it's a brand name, they won't give you the libraries that they've built. You've got to train your own system, you've got to train your own libraries, you've got to build your own libraries. So it's something as similar as that. That really doesn't make a difference. If the engine can do something, some sort of a name entity recognition, if the engine can do some sort of a semantic relatedness understanding, if a system can depict some sentiment analysis, qualities, I think it's good to go. And once you figure that out, you build your own libraries, train your own system. So I think that's that. I hope it answers your question to some extent. Coming back to your previous question, I think another important aspect that at least we've experienced after interacting with about 200 odd clients is that a multilingual support is extremely important. For a country like India, or for a region like Middle East, or even Southeast Asia, like Indonesia, if you're not able to converse in the language of your audience, you are actually no good. Why? Because your audience is perhaps not really speaking in just English. They're probably speaking in Malayalam or Telugu or Punjabi or Hindi or some other language. Likewise, Arabic.
Probably looking at 60% of the audience that doesn't speak.
Exactly. So if your platform does not really cater to give you a multilingual support, probably you should be thinking twice about it. Third, and perhaps the most important fact that you should be keeping in mind is what kind of a roadmap is a provider sharing with you. When I say a roadmap, I mean a feature set that they're planning to introduce. Is the product evolving, or has it already reached a peak and after that the vision is not clear? So I think these 3-4 parameters you can take into account. For example, one of the recent cases, one of our clients was also considering another platform for a customer support use case. That platform did not provide one very crucial aspect, which was a botless human support, which would mean that if you're interacting with a human, certain processes can be modified, certain intents can be modified, and for any question that a bot cannot answer, you can simply call the API of a live chat tool of their support teams. So then that means that I mix a bot and a human, and I kind of end up answering to the user's queries. So certain upgrades like that, if they're present in the platform, I think it's a win-win for the platform. You should go for it. Otherwise, just try and research more and figure out more. So I hope that answers your question. Lastly, about the affiliate networks and you manage campaigns bit. Personally, I think the lineage that a platform is coming in from or a service is coming in from matters the most. For example, somebody that has been in the communication space for, let's say, a decade or maybe more than a decade would be able to better help you with database or with what kind of emailers or what kind of SMSs would work for what kind of audience. That kind of intelligence, I think, would come in from lineage. So that's one aspect of it. Second, what kind of support are you getting? Are you getting just the database, or are you also getting support in terms of execution of that database or execution of your campaigns? So if there's a team that is helping you get a database, helping you plan a campaign, helping you execute it, and delivering on the ROIs for you, what else could you ask for?
Thank you so much for answering all the questions, Gaurav. And for people who want to understand in detail what to look out for when trying to select a chatbot service provider or an affiliate database provider, and that will be all from us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And the questions we've not been able to answer, we will definitely answer them through emails. You'll get a copy of the video that we just made for this webinar so that you can go through the questions again and again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.